Hey everyone, Road Breach here, and today we're taking a look at Insound Mind. Insound Mind is a first-person horror game developed by We Create Stuff and published by Modus Games. The game was released for Nintendo Switch, Xbox Series S and X, and PS5 on September 28th, 2021. I saw this game being advertised on Instagram, and I thought it looked pretty interesting, so I pre-ordered it for the PS5. Yes, I said PS5. I got it when I was in Nevada. One interesting factlet about this game is that the music was composed by The Living Tombstone, a popular music YouTuber who makes fan songs and original music. I figured I'd play something spooky for the holiday. I was originally going to play Medieval, but change of plans. So, what should we prescribe this game? Well, let's make an appointment and see what this game has to offer. Let's start with the case first. It's a little busy, but let's break it down. In the center, we get this creepy government agent guy. The artist did a really good job making this guy look grotesque. On the left, we get this mannequin holding a key with a cat on its back. And on the right, we get this creepy woman with glowing eyes. She also seems to have not trimmed her nails too. To the far right, we get this creature with a spotlight for a face. Behind the ones in front, we can see a doorway with an open door. There's also a cassette tape in the front, which serves as our storytelling device in the game. One thing I appreciate is this psychedelic backsplash. It accentuates the imaginative elements and makes it feel
trippy.
Yeah, thanks Desmond. As for the text, it may be simple, but it stands out from the background very well. I believe the O in sound is supposed to be a cat eye, and this has a much bigger significance than you'd think upon first glance. You also may have noticed that this is the deluxe edition. This means you get a code for a digital art book and the soundtrack, which you can redeem at this website. We'll talk about all that later though, don't worry. On the back, we see a lighthouse, more of the psychedelic backsplash, some of the selling points, and some information about the game. The only thing I want to highlight is this error here with the rating. This was most likely unintentional because they misspelled language the second time they wrote it. If they wanted to fill out the rating, they probably could have added drug reference to the content warning. But enough of the case, let's look at the game. The game's graphics are pretty good. Usually the Unity engine isn't lauded for its graphical fidelity, but this game's environments are fairly well rendered. These places look totally disheveled, like something truly terrible went down. This hub building in particular has debris everywhere, police tape, explosive barrels, and dangerous pools of liquid. Homa Mart, the supermarket, felt pretty familiar to me because I have a job at BJ's, and seeing this back room with the pallet jacks and the forklift made me feel right at home. Right at home. What have I become? But even though the environments look pretty good, the character animations make it clear that this was a game made by a small independent studio. Tanya the cat, for instance, isn't as animated as naturally as a AAA studio would have done. And when you get some weapons, your character Desmond looks kind of robotic when using them. I won't harp on that too much because 1, it's not that deep of an issue, and 2, this was made by a small studio founded in 2007. This game bills itself as a first-person psychological horror game with puzzle solving. This game managed to scare me multiple times throughout the supermarket, but other areas were either too well lit or big and expansive to where my fear was actually suspense at points where I was being attacked by enemies. Much like Resident Evil, you're given some firearms to deal with the enemies, but you have limited ammo to deal with them. One thing this game has over Resident Evil is stealth. Resident Evil just had you running away from enemies if you ran out of ammo, and while you're able to do that here, this game allows you to sneak around enemies. I barely made a use of stealth to be honest, mostly because I wanted to get this video done, but also because I got the arms of a fighter. Get it? Speaking of which, let's talk about the guns you get. You get a pistol, a flare gun, and a shotgun. It takes a couple of shots to kill enemies with the pistol, but if you aim at the head, they go down in one hit. The flare gun kills regular enemies in one hit, and the shotgun wrecks the shit of enemies if you aim at their heads. I also got pretty excited when I got the shotgun, mostly because I love Doom, and Doom's made me absolutely love the shotgun. The flare gun is also used to get rid of these pools of unnatural darkness. You also get a glass shard, which you can use as a knife to cut through enemies, police tape, and smash these wood boards. You smash wood boards with a piece of glass. Yeah, sure, whatever. Another thing you can use as a weapon is the radio device. The radio device is primarily used to interface with other radio devices, but you can use it to kill enemies in one hit, unless there are these big brutes which take 3 hits from the radio device to kill. Well, they take 3 hits from basically any weapon to kill if you aim at their heads. But fighting isn't the only thing you can do to get enemies off your back, because you get these things called lure pills, which you get from the train yard. The lure pills can be thrown to lure enemies away from their current position, but you can also use these pills to combust toxic pools of liquid. You can also use these pills to heal yourself, but you don't get a lot of health back when you take them. But these pills aren't the only way to get your health back, because you can also find food strewn around the levels. On normal difficulty, the game is pretty generous with the food. The flashlight, horror game standard, lights the way in dark areas, but it drains pretty slowly. And you need to refill the flashlight's energy with batteries you can find strewn throughout the levels. And the last thing to add to your utilities is a gas mask. The gas mask is used to cross pools of toxic liquid. That's it. The gas mask pretty much becomes useless when you get the lure pills, though. You'll also find drugs scattered throughout the levels. These drugs increase your stats, which you can see when you open your inventory. Speed is pretty self-explanatory. Stamina refers to this bar right here, which shows how much you're able to run before you need to let the bar recharge. Stealth, I don't really know what that refers to specifically. I believe it refers to how quiet you are when crouching, but I don't really know. And health is, of course, your maximum health. The number next to each of these stats refers to the level of each stat. So if you pick up enough of a particular drug that enhances a particular stat, the level of that stat will go up. The one stat that I didn't really make use of was stealth, and the most noticeable stat change was my health. I'm not entirely sure what the level cap for the stats is, mostly because I don't have the time to grab all the drugs, because I'm on a time crunch. The game's puzzles were pretty fun to figure out. There's notes everywhere that you can read, and some of them are hints for the puzzles. I think a good example of this would be the dollhouse puzzle. This puzzle has you put a sister, mother, brother, and father doll in a particular room of this dollhouse. How do you figure this out, though? Well, there's a note poking out of the garage that gives you some clues where to find the dolls and where to put them. I originally didn't understand this pill mixing puzzle, but then I went back into a certain room that tells you where to find 3 pheromone mixes that correspond with the color coding on these pipes. I'll talk about the most annoying part of this particular puzzle when I talk about the story. This game also has some light platforming, especially in the transitional areas to the main levels. Now, let's talk about the story. You play as Desmond Wales, a therapist whose patients have spiraled out of control due to a mysterious incident, so it's up to Desmond to figure out what's going on. You go through the memories of your patients in the form of these cassette tapes. All of the patients have a specific issue, which is bolstered by the tapes you listen to when you go through the transitional areas specific to each level. Each patient also has a manifestation of their specific issue. You start off in the basement of the apartment building, and you gotta get a flashlight and a pistol. I believe that pistol is a Colt 1911. Virginia Rule is the first patient you tend to, and she has an issue with her self-image. She used to love going to beauty pageants until she accidentally pulled the cabinet mirror off the wall of the bathroom, which screwed up her face, and her mom made her attend anyway. Her level is a superstore named Homamart, which is where her untimely death took place. If you get within her vicinity, she charges after you. You're encouraged to have her run into these mirrors, but the pistol can ward her off if you can't find a mirror. She'll also mostly hang around the food aisles, so when you're figuring out puzzles, she's not an issue. The main thing this level wants you to do is to break all 4 mirrors. That's actually where the piece of glass comes from. You can even use it to look behind you and see stuff like the patient or the drugs. It's also after this where Tanya starts talking to you. It was strange at first, but by looking at the title and the back of the box, it actually makes a bit of sense. The next patient is Alan Shore. He has both a fear and fascination with the dark. Alan had nightmares for most of his life, thinking it was normal and not getting any help for it. This fear ended up being the reason why he got a job at the Icarus Lighthouse. By the way, Icarus is a character from Greek mythology. His father Daedalus made him a set of wings out of wax and feathers. Icarus flew too close to the sun and melted his wings, which led him to fall into the ocean where he drowned. Thank you for coming to my history lesson. In Alan's nightmares, monsters swallow him into the darkness, so naturally he does that when he catches you. You can shoot him to ward him off with the pistol, or you can use the mirror shard to get him off you. One notable puzzle is here in this disheveled cabin. where the mirror shard gets put to some good use. You can use it to find oil cans to light these lanterns. There's also a trippy platforming section on the way to getting the flare gun. In terms of first-person platforming, I prefer Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, because Doom Guy moves quickly, he can grab onto ledges, whereas Desmond can't jump unless you sprint. Now look, I understand these two characters, along with their requisite games, are totally different, but the stiff jumping here still hampers the fun. I still very much prefer the platforming in this game. Well, these games. The main task this level has you accomplish is changing the light bulb in the lighthouse. The next patient is Max Nygaard. His issues pertain to his anger at the loss of his job. Max worked at the quarry outside of town. He lost his job because Mayer Pharmaceuticals bought the land to open a new distribution center. His therapy sessions were court-mandated after a dispute from his ex-wife, who left with their daughter Madison. Max feels regretful for not being able to keep the family together. I really like Max's manifestation. He's got headlights and exhaust pipes like a hot rod, and he's got a skull like a bull. He even revs up with engine noises to ram you. But it was here where the game's frame rate dropped off a cliff. Now, look, I could understand the game running like this if I was playing this on the Switch, but I'm playing this on the PS5. This is the most powerful gaming machine I own, so I really don't see any excuse for this to be happening. Besides that, I really like this railcar puzzle, and that's mostly because intricate railway systems fascinate. You got to get through this door, but this railcar can't bust through it because these blocks are, well, blocking it. You need to attach the battering ram to the railcar in order to smash through the door, and to do that, you need to get into the shed and attach the battering ram by opening these doors from the inside and rotating the turntable and getting the battering ram onto the railcar. It's simple, but damn do I love it. There's a puzzle where you mix pheromones to get the lure pills, and to do that, you need to get 3 pheromone vials that are in 3 different rooms of this hangar. The one in the processing zone was easily the worst point in this entire level. The vial is inside this case that's too heavy to carry, so you need to transport the case via these conveyor belts. Sounds easy, right?
Wrong. This is annoying because the processing room is poorly lit, you need to throw switches to direct the case to the blast room, and while you're doing this, Max is trying to ram your ass and choke you with exhaust. The kicker? I had to do this all over again because I died!
But after I got all 3 vials, the mixing puzzle was pretty fun. You have to defeat the bull by getting him over to this pit, throwing the pills into these rocks, getting him to ram the supports to drop the rocks onto him and crack his skull, throw pills into the opening, and get him to pull his own engine out. The last patient is Lucas Cole, and he suffers from PTSD and self-doubt. Ever since Lucas returned from the war, he's been trying to make sense of his hallucinations. His war stories were deemed too hard to believe by anyone who listened, so he was seen as broken by the war. If you get within Lucas's spotlight, he'll shoot you to death with the gun on his body. To deal with Lucas's manifestation, you need to take the radio device and aim it at 3 glowing areas on his body. Once you've done that, he'll be out of your way for a while. This level introduces these shadow people enemies that will attack you if you're not looking, but you can attack them and they'll be gone for a while. This level has you trying to get into a bunker, so you need to go to a watchtower, a water tower, a radio tower, and a church to get the passcode for the door. I thought that I would need to write all this down in order to remember anything, but I ultimately didn't need to because once you figure out each number, they stay up in the sky and arrange themselves into the code you need to get into the bunker. It's here in the bunker where I have trouble connecting the dots. You see, you have to open these doors in a specific sequence. In these rooms, you find computers with audio logs from a woman named Rosemary James, who was a scientist for Mayer Pharmaceuticals. And she's talking about a project called Agent Rainbow. Agent Rainbow is a fear-based weapon meant to end conventional warfare. I assume Agent Rainbow is a drug of some sort because the digital art book says Lucas was drugged on the battlefield. There's a very good chance I missed something. I don't know how or if Agent Rainbow relates to the other patients, how exactly it works, or how the research for it was conducted. I mean, it does relate to Max because Mayer Pharmaceuticals' distribution center that lost him his job was actually a lab, but I'm still not 100% sure on what Agent Rainbow actually is. Leading up to this point, none of the phones have been working, so the main thing you're supposed to do in this level is align a satellite to psychically communicate with Lucas in the real world. After you defeat the manifestation, you use the radio device on the screen star and you start talking to Lucas telepathically. After that, you get a call from Agent Rainbow. Up to this point, he's been calling to taunt you and showing up to antagonize you. Agent Rainbow is a manifestation of Desmond's paranoia, and he's been trying to wear Desmond down both physically and mentally, to permanently take over Desmond's psyche. And like his name implies, he also represents the Agent Rainbow conspiracy. Agent Rainbow calls to tell you to go downstairs to get a parting gift, which happens to be another tape. This tape is basically the final boss fight, but before you fight him, he sings you a song.
All eyes on me now, open wide. You know what's wrong with you, a lethal case of deja vu. Sit on the edge, staring to the void. Maybe you're sane, or maybe just paranoid. I hear them. Oh, here comes the Savior. Who can break these thoughts away from me? Oh, no more bad behavior. School my head on right from moderate feet.
Ah, crap, that's a massive gap. Well, here we go. Holy sh! Yeah, Agent Rainbow's level has reduced gravity. In this level, you avoid explosive barrels and crates Rainbow throws at you, and fight off some more of the basic enemies you fought for the whole game. This is also where the game makes liberal use of the platforming. I died here a lot because the platforming just doesn't have the same finesse as a competent platformer. The main thing this level wants you to do is to put all of the tapes in each tape player in the same order you played them in. Oh yeah? Watch me! After Agent Rainbow is defeated, Desmond records some new audio logs and gets back to his office. You can join Tanya on the roof to close out the game, or you can go back and collect the drugs you didn't find. There's also some vinyl records in the patient's apartments you can look for, and there was a vinyl that I found in Lucas's level after I originally beat the game. I really like this moment on the roof. It's been established that Tanya has died somehow. When she talks about how much Desmond loved her, it legitimately made me teary-eyed. This game's heart-to-heart moments feel very genuine, and it helps make Desmond look like a good person who only wants the best for not only his patients, but anyone else around him that means well. There's also a post-credit scene where Lucas straight up breaks into Desmond's office and finds that he's unconscious, and mentions that they're going to take the fight to Mayer's Pharmaceuticals. And if there does happen to be a sequel to this game, then I'll be right there for it. Now, I paid for the deluxe version of this game. What do you get for the deluxe version? Well, the digital deluxe version of this game comes with a leaflet that has a code on it for the soundtrack and the digital art book. You enter the code at this website, and you get a PDF document of the art book and a zip file of the soundtrack. The soundtrack is pretty self-explanatory. It's the list of songs from the game, but the digital art book includes art of the characters, including unused designs, layouts of the levels, and even some character biographies, which came in handy when making this video. Overall, this game's good. InSound Mind is pretty good at what it sets out to do. The puzzles are tricky but intelligent, and the game is pretty suspenseful at times. But the plentiful ammo kinda kneecaps the scares, at least when you're playing on normal difficulty. The game's story was a little difficult to follow, but the visuals along with the music by The Living Tombstone helps create a nice atmosphere. Definitely play it if you're looking for a good atmospheric brain teaser. Thanks for watching, and gotta zoom.
It feels really good. I'm crashing down. Everyone's crashing, but it's